Golfers now consider themselves athletes more than they ever have, and because of that, the golf shoe market has evolved, and so too has FootJoy. They've been in the game forever, and to talk about that evolution, we've got Patrick Trubiano and Jim Beidel, both intimately involved in the design and development of golf shoes. So, Patrick, if we can, let's start with you. If you can just introduce yourself, who you are, how long you've been with FootJoy, and what your current role is.
Yeah, sure. Thanks for having us, Tom. Name's Patrick Trubiano. I've been with FootJoy for a little over 4 years now. I'm the director of product management, so basically overseeing the product creation, working hand in hand with design and development to put out, the world's best golf shoes.
Yeah, same thing for you, Jim. How long you been there, and what do you do?
So first, thank you, Tom, for having us. So I've been with FootJoy for about 8 years. I started as a senior advanced footwear designer. And recently I've stepped up and I'm now in charge of the footwear design team, but still working on some advanced footwear concept and innovation.
Jim, I hear an accent. That's a Wisconsin accent, right? That's where you're from?
It's from Montreal. You're right.
Yeah. Okay. How long have you been in the States?
8 years. So I moved down to join FootJoy. Great opportunity. FootJoy are number one in the golf space. And also in my previous life, I was in a number one company in the skate business. So I felt a lot of similarity with the mindset of FootJoy. And obviously the focus on performance and innovation is something that was really attractive to me.
Yeah. Well, in my past life, I was a reporter, and I think it was a few years ago, I wrote a story about the history of golf shoes and how FootJoy was intertwined with that history, how it goes back to leather shoes and metal spikes, and how everything has now changed. And I wanted to talk to both of you about that. So whoever wants to jump in on this, how have you seen golf shoes change since there's a great example of one. And I don't want to date myself, Jim, but I've been playing since I was 3. I actually tell people I think I invented the spikeless golf shoe because I used to steal my dad's teaching shoes. He's a PGA professional. They didn't have spikes on the bottom, and I would play in those because they were just so worn in. So I like to say that I invented the spikeless shoe. But going back to however long ago that you can remember, whether it's when you joined FootJoy or just dating back to what you remember, what the golf shoe was, what the focus was, and how that's changed now. How drastic is it? How much has it changed? And even looking at what now golf shoes are.
So Tom, great question. And from my perspective, it has changed a lot. And I brought this sample with me today. So this is a classic Goodyear welted FootJoy shoe. So back in the day, everything was handcrafted, and the Goodyear welt was assembled here in Brockton. But something to note about these shoes is they were about 800 grams. So this is about 1.8 pounds. And for me, I think this is the biggest advancement in the past 8 years. If we look at the Premier Series shoe that we launched during the November Masters, so the 2020 November Masters, that shoe became almost overnight the most popular shoe on tour. But it's because of innovation, performance, but also if I'm telling you the weight of this shoe, it's almost half the weight of the old Goodyear Classic shoe. So in a nutshell, things have evolved quite a lot in the past 10 to 15 years. When we talk about design, manufacturing processes, but also materials.
And how have those capabilities changed, Jim? I mean, I think, you just showed us the difference in weight in those shoes. I don't think they were purposely making super heavy, uncomfortable shoes back then. The capabilities have changed. What is available to you now that you're able to do research and R&D on trying to create something new for that modern golfer?
So Tom, I think to answer this one, to your point, the modern golfer has evolved a lot. If only we're looking at the swing speed, the club head swing speed in the past 20 years. I think we were about 100 in the 80s, and now we're talking about coming close to 150 and even 120. So I think the golf footwear had to evolve to adapt to be hand to hand with that new modern golfer. And when we're talking about capabilities, there's a lot of new materials that we have started introducing and utilizing in our shoe. One of them is carbon. So I got here a little example. So this is a carbon plate that you do have in the new in the new HyperFlex, which is in the shank area of this HyperFlex shoe. So again, this is to enhance support and stability. We have a lot of other features that will enhance support and stability. That typically, if we look in the past, classic shoe were the stable shoe, right? It was a stable platform with a stiffer EVA midsole, and the athletic shoe was more about comfort. If I look one of our Quantum here, so the suspension of the soft foam, it's all about cushioning, mobility. But now what we're able to do is infuse some of those material advancement and infuse some of the learnings from all our testing to be into our high performance athletic shoes. So the new HyperFlex have a lot of the comfort that you can expect from the athletic shoe, but also have the control, which is support, control, support, and traction. So a lot of advancement in those shoes that have occurred in the past 5 to 10 years.
Patrick, I think you maybe have an interesting perspective on this as well, because you like you said, you've been there for 4 years at FootJoy, but you've been in the shoe business for a long time, and you've seen how the athlete has changed, the needs of the athlete have changed. Coming from your perspective, being there for 4 years, I think it's even changed within that time frame as well of what you're trying to do, especially with the tour players at an elite level, the consumer who wants to maybe mimic what the tour player wants. How has it changed since you've been there in terms of focusing on the athlete and how to manage their needs and give them ultimately what they want?
Yeah, I mean, calling a golfer an athlete, it isn't that old. I mean, like we think about the next generation of golfers, and they're former wide receivers or former linebackers. They played basketball, they played other sports growing up, and they're not looking necessarily, or not all of them are looking necessarily to shape shots. They're looking to hit the ball over the trees. I mean. I've never, especially the last 2 to 3 years, the focus you're seeing on players, especially our elite players, on nutrition and getting their bodies, ready for the golf season has certainly enhanced. I mean, they're working with physios, they're working with doctors and making sure that they're maximizing everything they can in the off season and, on the off weeks to prepare themselves for the weekend. The days of golfers walking around with McDonald's on the course are certainly gone, right? It's nutrition bars now, and it's all about, making sure your body's ready. And I think that's certainly been the biggest evolution over the last few years, is that these athletes, these golfers are athletes, and, they're looking at their equipment and wanting to maximize that through how their biomechanics are through their swing. So to do that, it's a lot of work off the course, which has certainly ramped up the last 2 to 3 years.
Yeah, and that was a great segue into my next question. I do want to talk about that research, because I think a lot of times when the average consumer looks at shoes, at golf shoes specifically, I don't think they realize how much actually goes into researching, developing, designing that shoe to get the most performance out of it, because it's a piece of equipment on the golf course. Jim, if you want to handle this one, what really goes into researching and developing a shoe, whether it's at the highest level or for the average consumer, and trying to adapt to maybe even higher swing speeds? More, you mentioned, Patrick, how much they're working out and the physio behind it. There's got to be more torque there and more tension that you've got to deal with as a shoe company.
So, Tom, great question. Again, I think we're in excited times where, I think every company tests in quality and a little bit of performance. But in our side, in the past 6 years, we basically invented 8 machines to play around our shoes and to kind of replicate or mimic what happens during your shoe during the golf swing. So we'll have those 8 machines, do flex testing on the shoe, do torsion, 4-foot flex, and we'll get a result out of all our shoes. You can think about a ranking, or let's say the Mario Kart chart that you get when you pick one of the Mario Karts. So in the same way, we can test our shoe, and this will be done at Manchester Lane, which is 5 miles away from our headquarters, and get a signature for every of our shoe. That then, as a designer, we can utilize that data and make better products. So I like to think that now we're in an era of data-driven designs, So all of this testing that we do and all the data we get back, we can increase on traction, we can increase on weight saving, but make sure that if we do push the weight saving, we do not compromise performance, quality, and all the other attributes that we want to check on the product. So a lot of testing that we do in-house. We also have university partners that we conduct some testing. I'm thinking of Cornell University. I'm also thinking of St. Francis Xavier, which is in Nova Scotia in Canada. So a lot of internal testing, a lot of external testing, and obviously the big part of the testing is directly with the golfer. So we have internal wear tests, but Patrick can also talk about the testing that we conduct with our pros.
Yeah, Tom, I think that's a good point. The equipment part is truly that, and I think a lot of consumers and pros, obviously they equate a driver fitting or an iron fitting, right? Like they're getting something that's customizable to their swing, how they hit the ball, and they're optimizing, their swing through getting fit. Footwear is no different. Footwear is very much, it's different depending on what type of golfer you have. There's different features and benefits for each golfer. There's not one golf shoe that will, work for every single person. And I think that's where we take a lot of pride in being the number one brand, is that we have the depth and the breadth of golf footwear where we have something for everyone, which is, it's unique. I think we always tell, our partners, like, we only work on golf. Like FootJoy is dedicated to golf and golf only. That comes down to traction, the EVA, our foam composites. Everything is geared to the golfer. It's not drafted off of another sport and putting spikes in it and saying, hey, here's a golf shoe. The amount of testing we do, you're right. Not a lot of people know what goes into it, or the amount that we put into a golf shoe. I think you're going to see over the next couple of years that's going to change. I think we're going to be a lot more vocal and a lot more educating on the golfer on why it's important to get into the right footwear and why performance matters with footwear and how it can affect your game. Because we're doing it. We've been doing it for years, and I think now's the time, especially with the influx of golf or golfers into the game. People are interested. They want to be educated, and what better brand than the number one brand in golf to educate them on why footwear is important. So I think, or I know, you're gonna start hearing a lot more from FootJoy around performance, innovation, how we're investing in those aspects of the business, and really educating the golfer on why a pair of shoes makes sense versus, say, a sneaker, for example.
Yeah, that's interesting. You talked a little bit about versatility in there too, and I think we mentioned the HyperFlex, especially the 2025 version now, releasing in March. I think that's almost a blend of both worlds, where it's an athletic look, but you're getting function, you're getting stability. Jim, you touched on a little bit with the carbon. It's not just a comfort shoe; it's a little bit of both. Do you think that's a big part of why it's become so popular and why FootJoy is putting so much into that model?
Yeah, I can start off with that one for sure. I mean, I think one thing that we all don't need to ignore, but the styling, it looks good,
yep.
Right? Like
yeah.
that's still important. We're certainly investing in the performance and the innovation of all of our golf shoes, but we can't turn away from styling and making sure that we're relevant and we're on top of trends and what the golfer's looking for. Certainly, you mentioned it, Tom, versatility and what how a golfer dresses. That's certainly evolved over the years. I mean, perfect example is the jogger pant. 4 or 5 years ago, that didn't exist. Hoodies, those didn't exist on the golf course, and they do now. And I think with that evolution comes the style evolution of how golf shoes are going to look. And HyperFlex is the perfect example of an athletic silhouette, something that is very versatile and can be worn with many different looks, but it's still built for tour level performance. It's still built with a specific foam and stratofoam that really encompasses, that energy return that a golfer needs to avoid foot fatigue on the course, right? It's all stuff that's specific to the golfer, but obviously styling and how it's worn was very important. And HyperFlex is, as you mentioned, it's kind of this hybrid of this, high engine golf shoe that the best players in the world wear. But it has a lot of the styling from the athletic space.
Yeah, you mentioned some of the best players in the world. That was something that was interesting to me. That one of the best players in the world, Justin Thomas specifically, he switched into the HyperFlex, and I feel like I've seen pictures of him as a kid in a Premier and or at least a traditional leather golf shoe. So that one stood out to me the most, that he made the switch. Why do you think Justin and some of the other tour players are adopting to this shoe and coming into this one?
Yeah, Justin's a perfect example of just this evolution and this eagerness from our tour players to learn and to educate themselves on how their body mechanics are working and how optimizing your footwear can help your game. You're not joking. He's been in classics from FootJoy since he was a young kid. And one thing to note, and I think worth calling out, is that at FootJoy we don't force any of our players to wear the latest drop. We don't tell them which shoe is the big marketing shoe and that you have to get into this. So I think that differs from what you see elsewhere. We want our players to play their best, and if there's a shoe in the line that works for them, we want to make sure they're in it. So we worked closely with Justin, with his trainer, with his physio, on getting some data on what was happening with his footwork. So, he was using force plates and understanding, how his body mechanics and his feet were moving. And he was in a test phase in the off season. There wasn't anything. It wasn't like he didn't like Premier Series. He's still a big fan, but he was in that phase of, what else is out there? Is there something else out there that would work with my swing? And after doing a number of tests, HyperFlex, gave him, faster club speed. It gave him faster ball speed, and that equates. It's funny. It equates some of our players. One in particular, Cam Young, who we were fitting a few months ago. He was equating, say, you gain a third of a stroke, through 18 holes. He was equating that to dollars, right? So in his head, he's equating that to dollars and saying, oh, I could have made blank more if I had, potentially switched into this footwear. So Justin is certainly in tune with his body. I'm sure, he's very active on social media, and I'm sure you've seen the work that he puts into his game and into his body. And it's no different than what he was looking for in his shoe. And HyperFlex just worked for him. It allowed him to be more mobile versus what he was getting in Premier. And also enabled his ability to use the ground more. And I think that was an important one for him. And then seeing all the stats and the numbers coming back from his trainers, it made sense. And it was pretty eye-opening and shocking, I think, for a lot of people to see Justin in an athletic shoe and not in his traditional classics. But he's a great example of how, we build footwear for different reasons for different golfers. And, it's our job to help educate people to get them into the best footwear for them.
Yeah. Well, maybe both of you can touch on this, because I think what you said was interesting. With he's looking for making some changes and he's looking at different data points. But HyperFlex has been around for a couple of years. It's not new. He could have switched before. What was different about this version, and what are some of the changes that you all have made to maybe help get some of those numbers and make these tour guys see this is actually going to help your swing?
I can start this one, Jim, and then you can layer in if you want. I think I can give you a high level, and Jim can get you more into the scientific design part of it. But the history of HyperFlex was, I think 2 or 3 iterations ago, it was really this soft, squishy, very comfortable, engineered knit, the shoe that Jim has right now. Very comfortable, but just, it didn't have the stability or structure for those high swing speeds. And I think as golf evolved, as the golfers evolved, we really wanted to create something that maintained that comfort, but gave you the stability and structure to be worn at the highest levels. So in some instances, or, specific to the new HyperFlex, one of the biggest changes was the collar construction. The past 2 iterations were engineered booty constructions. So not your traditional tongue. When we changed to the traditional collar, traditional tongue, that certainly opened up, it opened up the golfers who would participate in wearing the shoe. It's just more accommodating. It's an easier fit. We incorporated what we call True Fit system, which goes into the inner linings of the shoe. When you put the shoe on, you feel it instantly. It basically hugs your foot and keeps you locked in. We also wanted to not only ensure that we had the flexibility of a HyperFlex and what it's been known for, but we also wanted to make sure we maintained a high level of stability. So as Jim called out or pointed out earlier, adding a TPU piece under the midfoot, or for some players a carbon piece. That just, it allows you to utilize the ground more so than it has in the past, but still gives you that optimal flex while walking. So those are a couple of the I guess the latest iterations. I don't know if Jim, if there's any more worth calling out, because the shoe is certainly a beast. But
no, Patrick, I think it was a good recap to your point. Like the first gen HyperFlex, great on comfort, but probably did not have the support that you need for that 120 miles per hour club speed. The second gen that I have here was great on the on support and control. But I think on the latest one, with some of the FNB's features and benefit that Patrick highlighted, I think it's a perfect blend of the comfort from the first gen and the support and control of the second gen. So it's a little bit like the best of both worlds package, and that new HyperFlex. Plus, it has a very clean athletic style. And coming back to the point before, I think style is a big point of new adopters of that shoe. Obviously, it's look good, feel good, play good. But we also add a design strategy that we kept from the previous round HyperFlex that I call business in the front, party in the rear. I got a quick picture here to explain what it is. What it entails for the golf shoe is we want to keep the vamp very clean. So on the second gen HyperFlex, you'll see the vamp is very clean, and you got more of the tech and the back quarter piece. So same on this new design, we kept the toe down very clean. And you may ask me why. A lot of our pro always has that request. They don't want any distraction when they're making the big putts. So thinking about the US Open last year, where the final putt made a difference. So again, the HyperFlex was there with a very clean vamp. So this is a design strategy, a design ethos that we try to keep for this offering. And to Patrick's point, a lot of support in the mid back section of the design, with obviously the shank piece. Then you have the TPU cage, and if I show you here some component, so TPU saddle that's on the side of the lace, and what you have here is a upper that is pressed down to create some reinforcement zone in the saddle area. So a lot of technology and new materials in that design. It's quite nice.
Yeah, that's pretty cool. All of this being said, everything that we've talked about with some of the new materials, some of the new designs, athletes, and even I think I would probably throw in new golfers to the market. Ever since 2020, we've had a ton of new golfers. And Patrick, you touched on it with hoodies, with joggers. There may be a shift in the culture of golf as a whole. So where do you both see the market going for golf shoes? Is it going to start to, are we going to start to see more of a HyperFlex want? Is that going to take over the classic shoe, or what trends are you all seeing right now?
Yeah, the current trend that we're certainly seeing is we call it like the casualization of golf, and Jim's highlighting one of the shoes that we have to kind of tap into that, which is, unfortunately, like, a lot of golfers come into the game and it's great, and more golfers the better, but they're not educated enough to know what the importance of golf footwear is. So in a lot of cases, some of these new golfers are wearing sneakers, right? So we see that, and it's on us to understand, okay, what is, why are they doing this, and how do we educate them? How do we educate them to know why a certain footwear would help their game? And I think we have categories like the one Jim was just showing in Quantum, which is one of the most comfortable shoes, hands down, even outside of golf, but it's also built for golf too. It has superior traction on the outsole. So those golf specific attributes that we know are important to a golf shoe are built into it, which differentiates us from, I guess, where our competition is. But it's really highlighting the elevation of where consumers are first and foremost going, which is comfort. I think that's probably, the biggest trend or the biggest benefit or benefit that golfers are looking for. They want something that's comfortable first and foremost. Nobody wants to walk around in the heavy shoes, as we talked about earlier, or have to wear a shoe, around the house for 3 days before you can play in it. Which is, one of the benefits of Premier Series is that we have the stability and structure and the look of what our classic shoes look like, but we pride ourselves in that the shoe is ready out of the box and you're able to put it in play right away. So comfort is going to continue to evolve. I think as these new golfers become more and more interested in the game and they start playing more, I think the education that they're gonna see from FootJoy on why it's important to wear golf footwear, I think you're gonna start seeing more and more of those golfers transition into some of our pinnacle performance shoes like HyperFlex or Premier Series.
As the needs continue to evolve, so too will FootJoy. The HyperFlex is just the latest version of what that modern athlete wants and what that modern golfer is asking for.